This is Omar Nashashibi in Washington, D.C., and while it is near the end of the year, trade policy does not stop here in the nation's capital. Two developments on the steel and aluminum front, and also an update on the Boeing-Airbus deal that is still out there and being implemented. The World Trade Organization, or the WTO, ruled against the United States recently, saying the Section 232 national security tariffs of 25% on steel and 10% on aluminum are illegal. Many allies in Europe long claim that the tariffs imposed under the Trump administration and still in place violate global trade rules. The WTO panel said it does not find, based on the evidence and arguments submitted, that tariffs were, quote, taken in a time of war or other emergency international relations within the meaning of the GATT 1994 agreement. Therefore, the WTO panel found that the actions are not justified under the 1994 GATT. Norway brought this case as the Trump administration used national security provision of the Trade Act of 1962 as a reason to impose the tariffs on our allies. The ruling is not swaying the Biden administration, however, nor will it lead to the lifting of the tariffs. Even if the U.S. were to appeal the ruling, Washington has blocked the WTO appellate body from fully functioning, so the ruling essentially just sits out there. Many, however, were struck by the White House's reaction to the WTO ruling, which echoed similar sentiments raised during the Trump days. The Office of the U.S. Trade Representative put out a statement saying that the WTO has proven ineffective and that the dispute settlement system is in need of fundamental reform, something we have heard from some over at USTR, but this was a pretty harsh blow against the international body. The USTR also strongly rejected what it called the, quote, flawed interpretation and conclusions of the WTO panel reports, and went on to say that they do not intend to remove the Section 232 tariffs as a result of the WTO disputes, and that's not a surprise. So expect the 25% tariffs on steel and 10% on aluminum to continue for now. But speaking of those tariffs, the United States and European Union in 2021 struck a tariff rate quota agreement whereby imports of most steel and aluminum coming in from the EU could enter the United States without a tariff until that product hit a quota limit and from that specific country. At which point, when you hit that quota, quarterly basis for steel, semi-annual for aluminum, then the 25% on steel and 10% on aluminum tariffs take place for the remainder of that quota period. The U.S. came to similar agreements with the United Kingdom and Japan, but what they did with the European Union was, in addition to that tariff regime, they also created a system that the U.S. and European Union agreed to set up a system to monitor and restrict importation of carbon-intense steel and aluminum. Now, we're starting to get a better sense of what such a program might look like, even though we're not close to being done yet. On December 7th, 2022, the Biden administration sent a proposal to the European Union to create a global arrangement on sustainable steel and aluminum. The program would incentivize low-carbon steel and aluminum production by creating a tariff regime for exports from the United States or European Union and imports from countries not members of this, quote, club. Only market-oriented countries would be permitted to join in seeking to reduce the carbon emissions, which obviously is targeting and intentionally excluding China from being a part of it, and further way to apply tariffs to their steel and aluminum exports. Sources here in town indicated that membership criteria would focus on emissions intensity and non-market excess capacity for steel and aluminum products. Countries that join the global arrangement that have exported steel or aluminum products that exceed the threshold are going to be potentially subject to a determined tariff that they have not set yet. Those outside the club would also be subject to a different and presumably a higher tariff rate. This is still very much a proposal, and negotiators still have to discuss what emission thresholds would trigger these tariffs, at what rates the tariffs would be imposed, and who would enjoy more favorable terms within the club, in addition to seeing when it would be open for others to potentially join down the line. Even if this is just a conceptual start for the United States and European Union, U.S. Trade Representative Catherine Tai said the Biden administration is in fact on track to meet the previous goal of completing the agreement by October 31 of 2023, with an implementation date of January 1, 2024, which is just 12 months away or so. And that's really significant in terms of how that could upend markets in the future. There's even some speculation around town that could the Biden administration potentially replace the Section 232 tariffs that they have in place globally with some kind of a climate carbon-based oriented tariff system. And that would be Biden's way of replacing what the Trump administration put in, yet still have the tariff rate imposed that he needs to see in place for a number of reasons, politically and otherwise. That's there. And keep in mind, this is separate from the carbon trading system that the European Union has just started to announce as well. And there's been additional developments on the expansion of what they've already gone on the trading markets there. So this would be something new that would be created, and that would be mandated that the United States and European Union together monitor that these steel and aluminum imports coming in and out are subject to the tariffs, which again could alter the pricing and global availability of those metals in the markets. But lastly, and sticking with the WTO one more time, in a different area of a trade case, the United States and the EU working group on large aviation aircraft continue to meet in the Boeing-Airbus dispute. In June 2021, the Biden administration sought to lower tensions with the EU by reaching a solution to the long-running dispute. Officials from Brussels and Washington in their meetings reviewed the working group's ongoing analytical work related to Chinese non-market policies and practices in the sector, such as industrial planning and targeting, discriminatory and anti-competitive behaviors and activities of state or party-controlled entities. That means state-owned enterprises in China. They also exchanged views on the long-term risks to their market-oriented sectors from China's state-directed industrial dominance goals. So that again tells you with an additional focus on China, not just on steel, but also on aviations. With just a few days left of the year, we are still seeing quite a bit of activity on trade that we do expect to continue into 2023, and we'll keep you posted from here in Washington, D.C. on the latest from trade and tariffs.